Hi everyone, it's Sarah from Sassy Reads, and today I'm bringing you some of the books that I read in 2017. First up, we have Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I, along with 1,000 billion other people in this world, I don't know how many other people decided to pick up Murder on the Orient Express in November, but I happen to also be one of them. I gave Murder on the Orient Express 4 stars. In comparison to And Then There Were None, it was definitely a bit of a letdown. I originally was actually going to only give this one like 3.25 stars, but the ending was great and it saved this book for me. So that's the good thing about mystery thriller novels. If you have a good ending, you can save your book. Would I recommend it? Yes. Do I think it could have been better? Yes. My personal problem lied with the writing style, and I didn't think Hercule Poirot was all that great. He was just kind of so-so for me, but the ending, that was good. It was great. Definitely liked the ending. Next up, we have The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, which I finally finished also in November. I had been reading this book for like ever. I started it, I think, in March with one of my life group leaders from last year, and I'm in this year, so I have new life group leaders, and I finally finished it. And it was good. I gave it 5 stars. The reason why it took me so long to finish it is because I'm lazy, and sometimes I just don't feel like reading philosophical musings on Christianity. Sometimes I just want to read something fun. And this is fun in its own right, but it's definitely a little bit more to plot through, especially if you're a Christian. You may want to take your time with it. If you're not a Christian and you're just reading it for fun, it's definitely a fun satire. It follows Wormwood, who is writing letters to his uncle, Screwtape, and we're getting Screwtape's letters to Wormwood as Wormwood attempts to gain, destroy, and corrupt his patient, i.e. human's, soul. And yeah, it's a fun time. I highly recommend it. It's a good classic, and if you've liked like Mere Christianity or anything by C.S. Lewis, you probably like The Screwtape Letters. Next up, I read The Easter Parade by Richard Yates. I gave this one 4.25 stars. Not as good as Revolutionary Road, but still a good novel. This one follows Sarah and Emily Grimes. They're sisters, and they live in New York. Sarah is very in tune with the times, whereas Emily is kind of like a second wave feminist before feminism like existed in the second wave, and she struggles with relationships, unlike her sister Sarah, who has been happily married, and she thinks she's happily married until she discovers a huge secret about Sarah's marriage. And it's sad, it's tragic, but the ending, I don't know, I feel like Yates was slightly crass in this. Like, there was a lot of weird mentions of certain sexual things, and I was just like, is this necessary? Like, towards the end, there was this whole thing about a class at a party. Like, Emily goes to this party, and there's a lady who lives downstairs who offers classes on self-pleasuring for the woman, and they go and like look in her studio, and it's just really weird, and it didn't fit the story, and I was like, what is this? Is this just some weird fetish thing that you wanted to talk about for no reason? And then the ending itself left much to be desired, which is why I give 4.25 stars. If the ending wasn't so open, I probably would have enjoyed it much more. Next up, I reread Gatsby, or The Great Gatsby by S. Scott Fitzgerald for the 4th time, and I gave it 5 stars yet again. Yeah, it's one of my favorites ever, obviously. It's a classic. I love it. And I always notice new things every time I reread it, and this is my 4th time rereading it, and I still notice new things in this tiny little book. And to me, that speaks volumes. It's so brilliant, and I have so many different colors. Like, this time, I have colored it in light blue, orange and yellow, so like I have so many different like colors of notes. So like this one's a yellow, yellow, and then this page has green, not green, orange and yellow, and then so like there's just new things to be found every time I read it, and it's a fun experience. Next up, I read the collected stories of Raymond Carver, and this is a huge collection, and I read not a whole lot of them. I have a review for the ones that I read in class. I gave the ones that I read a collective 3 stars. Raymond Carver is not for me. I have come to this conclusion. Me and Carver, I just think he's underwhelming. I think he's too minimalistic. I don't really get much from his stories, and I just can't really be bothered, if I'm being honest. And so, yeah. Then I read Angel Fever by L.A. Weatherly, which is the 3rd book in the Angel series, and I gave this one 2.25 stars. This series declines rapidly. I compare it to Divergent, and the 1st book is good, 2nd book is not so good, and 3rd book is crap. Only though it wasn't 1-star material like Allegiant, it just wasn't very good. It was boring, and I really realized that I don't like Willow at all. I called everything that would happen. It was just boring, especially when you know like how everything is going to end, because you can see it coming a mile away. But I finished the series. I finished, I think, probably 1 series this whole year, and that was my series, so yay. Then I read Our DNF Branded by Kiri Taylor. I DNF'd it at page 48. I gave it 2 stars. It was just, boring. And then, like, the guy walked in on her in the shower, and she totally, like, wasn't even offended by it, and I was like, this is not okay. And then, like, I couldn't be bothered. Yeah, I was done. Then I read, Of Poetry and Protest for my poetry class, but I actually read the whole thing on my own because I like to. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is a great, poetry collection that looks at the Black experience, Black Lives Matter movement, Civil Rights movement, the Harlem Renaissance movement, all kind of movements, and it has like really cool art in here and pictures and photographs of the poets, and I highly recommend picking it up because I love it and I love owning it, and I think it's wonderful. And there's a couple poems in here that I think would be great to use in the classroom, especially when introducing poetry, so good stuff. Then I read Shadow Out of Time by H.P. Lovecraft. This is the last, I think this is the last one if I remember correctly. Yes, this is the last story in the Lovecraft collection I own, and it was interesting. I gave it 3 stars. It was very boring. It was really boring. It went on and on and on, and it just wasn't fun, and I did not like it at all. So yeah, definitely underwhelming, left much to be desired, and I left off on a sour note for Lovecraft. Next up, I listened to the audiobook of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This is my first Dickens. It follows the story of Pip, who is meeting his great expectations. He comes upon a great sum of money. There's like, you've probably heard it before, there's Miss Havisham, the old lady who like was abandoned before her wedding day and lives in her clothes forever. Yeah, it's that story. It's not that big. It was a lot of fun. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't amazing, but I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I do recommend it. It's a solid Dickens story, and I'm excited to read more Dickens because this was a great introduction to him. And my cover is very pretty. So yeah, I love this color. Anyway, out of all these books, I talked about quite a lot. Can I hold them all up? I'd recommend The Great Gatsby the most, and The Screwtape Letters the most. Yeah, those are the 2 that I recommend the most. Oh, and Of Poetry and Protest, because that one was really good. So, yeah, that's all I can do. Let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of these books. Don't forget to subscribe, and bye. Happy reading!